Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the second day. You can go to the next slide, Amir. So just before I get into the presentation, can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah. So just before I get into the presentation, I just wanted to pose some questions to you, and I'll go around and just ask you guys. So what comes to mind when you hear job safety, and who do you think is responsible, and what is your role in ensuring that we adhere to job safety? I'll start here. How would you answer those questions? Huh? Oh, I was gonna share the mic, yeah. Oh, thank you, boss.
I think the job safety basically involves you being able to carry out your duty in a very safe manner so that you can continue to carry out the duties without incurring any injuries. And I think for who is responsible, mostly we try to delegate those responsibilities on management to provide the needed equipment or provide the needed safety procedures. But I think the operator or the individual, you are also responsible for your safety. So I think the responsibility, I'll give it to the individual, but the role should be management role to ensure safety. But you, the individual, you are responsible for the safety. Sometimes you go to some organizations, the management provide the needed safety measures, but the operators or the technicians do not follow those procedures, and they end up getting injured in their process. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. Good.
I will start by saying that the first one comes to me because I'm the employee, and then being an employee, I need to know what I'm expected to do as far as safety is concerned. Then who is responsible? Partially myself and my superior or whatever, whosoever is ahead of me. And the major role there also is both ways. The management is also involved. I'm also involved.
Yeah.
I think the question says, what is your role?
It's okay. You can answer it whichever way you feel comfortable.
Thank you. I think what comes to mind when I hear job safety is basically the safety of the job, the environment in which I'm carrying out my duties. How safe is it for me in order to achieve my goals? I believe the environment has to be conducive. It has to be safe to allow me to carry out my duties properly and achieve the targets. And then who is responsible? I think on this one, it's actually a collective responsibility. Everybody involved in the chain is supposed to be responsible and carry out their roles accordingly. My role is to carry out my duty and play my part. I think basically that is my understanding.
Yeah, it's good.
When I hear something about safety, job safety, what comes to my mind is a situation wherein I go to where I work, do my work carefully without any hindrance or without coming back home to say, oh, there's an injury here, there's an injury there. And then that is what I see as job safety. Then when it comes to who is responsible, responsibility on who is starts with the management. Then when the management put a kind of a pathway to say, this is what you should do when it comes to issue of safety, then I have my own part to play, because the management will give to say this is the SOPs for safety. Then I have to, number one, abide with that SOP. Number two, what is my role? My role is, while I make sure that I abide by the SOPs, I also make sure that anybody who is close to me also abide by the SOPs. For example, when I go to the field, I'm not supposed to go to the field without wearing my field boots. And whosoever is going to work with me, I have to also enforce that the person also put on safety shoes, or field boots, field uniforms, field coats. That is my own role. And in doing that, you have safety, both because one of the things we talk about when you drive, you talk about this driving, say regard every other person as a mad person. So if I think like that, it means that I have to be careful not only about myself, but also with the people working with me. Otherwise, if care is not taken, I could be safe. What about the person working with me? It could be, if the person does not play his role and he has a challenge, the job for that day may not be done, because all of us will be running here and there. Thank you.
Actually, that's a very good point, like considering every driver as a mad person. That's how I view the Micras when I'm driving in Ibadan, right? So I don't trust them. So defensive driving. So yeah.
Yeah, the job, the farm safety, that is what are doses that will make the farm to be conducive for a staff to work. And there are so many things, and it could be, normally it's designed by the owner of the farm. Designed by the owner of the farm in the sense that, for example, you need to put like a fire extinguisher in places. You need to put a sign so that somebody will know, okay, this is where you are keeping your pesticides. We should not go to such a place. And if you do, there are some unpalatable things that you might get there. So when you see such a sign, and normally, as I said, is by the owner of the farm that used to pull this. And being that you have seen that, it's now your duty to keep to that so that you will not experience injury. And if the standard operating procedure, the management of the farm, they did not put it, then the person that is coming to work, there might be negligence not to, to follow. So you have to be delayed while your employee will follow you. So if the employer should fail to put this in place, definitely there's going to be a problem. That is why the SOP is very necessary, and it has to come from the owner of the farm, then the staff will follow, and it will be a kind of a win-win affair. Thank you.
Great points, Wilson. Good.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. What comes to mind when you hear job safety? Apparently, to me, is the work environment. If there was an injury here yesterday, I'm sure we won't be here today. Most of us will be, oh, I can't come here because someone got injured. So when it comes to job safety, is environment, how safe is the environment, how conducive is the job to you, and how well can you execute your job? Then who is responsible? I believe the responsibility here is talking, to me, who is responsible is myself. Yeah, if I'm coming to a place where I can get electrocuted, I have to make sure that I'm wearing something to guide me against that stuff. So once I understand my environment, I know where I'm working, I have to actually do some preventive measures, like probably putting on my safety boots, wearing some other PPE. Those are the basic, though safety is beyond wearing PPEs. So then what is my role? My role will be to follow the standard operating procedures put in place for safety. So let's take for example, if there's a if there's standard operating procedure for spraying, and so my role is to adhere by that and follow all the rules. So that's my point basically. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much. When I hear anything about safety, what comes to my mind is how to secure the environment, not to get injury any day, anytime. Because our farm is a place of work and we have to keep it safe. And those are the, what are the things that we need to do on the farm to make it a safe environment and to make it a conducive place for people to work. So those are the, there are some principles that guide that aspect. I will make sure that I put them into place, I put into practice day in, day out. And who is responsible? Where I'm working, I'm a supervisor there, so I'm responsible for. I'm responsible to keep. I'm responsible to keep and abide by the rules and regulations of the organization that I'm working with, because there's going to be and there must be a laid down rules that whenever we are working and anything that we are doing, those anything that we are doing, there are some things that you have to put in place that will make the environment to be conducive for those who are working with you, not only that fellow alone. And what are the rules? My rules is to abide by it and to lay down good example for those who are coming behind me and those who I'm working with, so that everyone can be in a safety environment. Thanks.
Thank you. Alex, thanks.
Yeah, what comes to my mind when I read farm safety is occupational safety, health, integrity of farmers or the people working in the farm and their families. And responsibility are shared, either the farm manager and the people working in the farm and using the equipment and so. And my own role will be to follow SOPs and respect manuals and the ways of working in the farm in different aspects.
Thanks. Thank you. Bodo. Bodo, you have no point. Don't go. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, so I can comment. Good morning. What comes to mind when I hear of job safety? That is to go to your work, wherever you are working, and come back home without any injury arising as a result of the work you are doing. That is my understanding of job safety. Who is responsible? Well, I think the management of whichever company you are working in should be responsible by creating the standard operating procedures, as others have talked about, that will bring about safety to the employees working there. Now, the role of me in job safety is to make sure that I follow those procedures so that I don't get injured. Thank you.
I just found an important point that I would like to mention, and that is that HSE is nothing stiff and fixed. It's something that has to be renewed and followed up every day, every month.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. When I see the word job safety, I'm looking at the mental and physical well-being of individuals within an organization, such that it ensures that everyone can apply himself without any risk or endangering anyone. And then this is not limited to job safety only, but extends also to the personal space, where we are looking at the social and even the personal space of an individual. You know very well the person has lost his or a mom or a close one, but you still push for that person to be using your implements or using your machinery. Again, that's endangering everyone, because one way or the other, that person is not there, he's somewhere else. And then whose responsibility is it? It is the responsibility of every individual within an organization. You are the watchman of your neighbor, and your neighbor is also your watchman. So it's the responsibility of everyone from top to bottom and also bottom to top. My role is to be aware of the responsibilities that I am assigned in terms of implementing standard operating procedure, and also to be conscious of the surrounding environment around my neighbors. Very well, you might be saying this is not my responsibility, but once a fire starts in the next door office, it will obviously come to you.
Yeah.
So it's also that element that you have to be conscious of for your surrounding environment as you do your work. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think what's come to my mind about safety is priority. I think this is supposed to be our first point in any kind of duty that you're doing, mainly in the field, because you have a lot of kind of dangerous situations in the field. And who is responsible is everybody. I think you start for yourself. As Lenin told, you need to care about the people that you're working with you, and as well when you come back home. There is some hidden dangers in field that you can see with chemicals and everything that you can bring home as make dangerous for your family or your friends, whatever, right? And I think the main role in the safety is knowledge. So who has more knowledge is supposed to teach each other what is danger, because sometimes the people doesn't know that they're put themselves in dangers. So who has more knowledge is supposed to spread this knowledge everywhere. That's mean you're supposed to alert your co-workers, your employees, and your supervisors as if they doesn't know, if they doesn't alert. So your whole is to spread the knowledge to avoid any kind of dangerous situation.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Well, what comes to mind when I hear about job safety is basically it's not merely physical, but it's also mental, social health. Okay, across the job that I'm either for myself or for the individuals around me. So, from one perspective, I must be safe out of harm, but I also have to protect others from being safe and out of harm. And as for who's responsible, everybody is basically responsible. This is something collaborative. So it is not upon merely the individual, but it's something that is shared with everyone. As for my role would be to not only obtain the knowledge, but also to actually implement and to be bothered with these things that are creating the unsafe habits or the things that are creating the hazards, and to work myself and others around these hazardous practices.
Yeah. Great. Is Gustavo online? Maybe we can get some perspective from him.
Okay, Alick. Yeah. So I would. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to make one comment on health and safety, and I think Peter is in the room. No, is Peter in the room? Peter, I think that Peter would remember when we went to Brazil. We visited one facility in Syngenta that was a high level of or safe, we can consider a safe place to work. And I used to work there, and we had one guy that used to work with us that was responsible for the field operations, and was the really good example of a person that really worried about safety. He wrote all the job safety procedures. He was always thinking on PPEs and trying to fight with the company to best procedures, to best equipment, etc. And one day he was cleaning one machine, and someone turned the machine on, and he lost the tip of his fingers, of one of his finger. And it was a really good environment, safe, and he lost his finger. And after that, he came to me and said, "Hey, Gustavo, see, the tip of my finger, I won't see that anymore. So it's done. So could be my arm, could be my life," he said. And so at the end, what the risk is there. The risk is for everyone. and as if even if you are really careful with that and really try to avoid the risks there, and it's just a matter of a second. So you need to be always attent to what can happen. No, the responsibility, everyone is responsible, definitely. We are responsible, and this also goes to remind me of one of I don't know, some of you may have met the Steve Korok that used to work with us in EIB. I used to travel a lot with him. When we traveled, he was taking pictures of health and safety, of risks, and at the end of our visits, he sent all the pictures to the directors and pushing for and emphasizing the risks components. And this is sometimes we think that is boring and it's, oh no, it's not for me. But he said, hey, Gustavo, I will do that. I will send pictures. I will push people to change, push the DDGs, the DDGs, whatever, to implement things, because I believe that is important. And from that, I can give you many examples that the things that were implemented because he sent the picture to the risk management unit, whatever. He sent that information, and after a few weeks, the risk management unit replied, he and say, hey, we changed that. And really risks that he reduced only by communicating, only by sharing his perspective. So my role is the same. It's trying to, when I see things, of course, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, no, and we don't see risks. So that's why it's important everyone to send or to participate. Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Alick. Yeah.
Thank you, Gustavo. So yesterday, after we started the meeting, I was talking to Amir, and I said, "Oh, Amir, at the beginning of the our session, you didn't point out to the participants, like in case of fire, where should they go, right? To make sure that they avoid using the elevator." Yeah, so that's one thing we need to do at the beginning of any meeting when you're gathered in a place like this. Be aware of the surrounding. So let people know where they should go in case of fire. Cameraman, I would like you to just zoom in here. Like just zoom into the cables there. Those and these ones. What's that? No, zoom in like just so we can see them there. It's coming, right? So these look like it doesn't look harmless, right? But something could happen here. Like I could easily trip over this, and I'm very visual. I can see my head hitting the floor and just bursting up. Or you can zoom in there. So when we are talking about safety, we are talking about things like this. So the things that look like they are harmless, right? These are things that we need to pay attention to. So like, yeah, so just be aware of your surrounding. Like when you're working, make sure that you're aware of the surrounding. Be attentive. Risk is everywhere, like it's everywhere. In front of where Gabriel is sitting there's so many cables. In front of Amir, somebody can get electrocuted. So I'm putting pressure on these guys anyway to get things done properly. We'll get into the presentation. Thanks everybody for the feedback. Oga, you can go last since you are the wise man, eh? At the end of the, yeah, you can give your perspective. So, and I think Gustavo said something about the hazards are everywhere. Like we work in a farm setting. There are mini farms in most of our cases. The plots sort of mimic major farms. So the risks are sort of similar, right? We are always using equipment, machinery, and we know, of course, with machinery come high risks. We're using chemicals to control weeds, pests. We exposing ourselves to the chemicals. There are some, like we pointed out just here, electrical, like electricity can be a source of hazard, and just the general environment as well. In Ibadan, actually, for those of you who haven't lived here long, or for the visitors, like we have a lot of snakes around the compound here. This is something that you have to pay attention to, like when you're in the fields. And just the fact that most of the facilities that we work on, the farms, like you look at Kanu, I don't think you are near a clinic, is it? Yeah. So you're very far from a clinic. So that puts you at high risk. And of course, like Amir said, safety is not just physical, it's also mental health as well. So next slide. So just the next slide is just talking about how we measure the impact of safety. Of course, we know when somebody is injured, of course, they'll be out of commission, so there'll be lost time, and that's costly to the institute as well as to the individual. We should keep track of total accidents at a farm, like keep recording total number of accidents, total recordable injuries. This is something like most companies, when you go to most companies, what they do is they'll keep a record of how many days they've gone between without an injury. And this is something we should institute actually at EiB-IITA research farms. And then the working days, like that's the last one I was just talking about, working days since the last incident. So try to keep track of that, because it's giving you an idea of how you are doing, how you're performing in terms of managing safety. Next slide. So this just puts like a picture is worth 1,000 words. So it just shows some of the risks that we expose ourselves to. You know, like if you can see that. Next slide. When I went around with Amir, we are looking at the farm equipment there. Some of our equipment, they've got bars there, but they're really thin ones with a canopy. And Amir rightly pointed out that these are not roll-over protective. Yeah, so that's something we should make sure that all our tractors at the farms have got that. And the ones that have those thin ones that are just carrying the canopy should be changed. So next one. So, and this is why, that's why we have that, sir. I think you're running out of power. Yes.
Yeah, maybe just to go over the question again, the picture that you showed.
Yeah.
Do they come then like that, or someone is responsible for just dismantling them and making sure that, you know, we use them without the safety feature there? The anti-roll bar that normally comes.
Yeah. I think it's sort of historical. In the 70s, the tractors from the 70s never used to have that. They were just open vehicles. And the newer ones, that they all come with that. Wilson, you can correct me. Most of those tractors that we have, the canopies didn't have that, and we had to install them here. So yeah, so the old ones actually didn't, but currently I think the manufacturers are paying attention to this, and they install this before they ship.
Yeah, we're just giving an example. I traveled with Vinicius to Malawi.
Yeah.
No, it was Vinicius. The workshop manager was actually responsible for removing them.
Oh.
No, they will come brand new. They take them out. Wherever they go, they would not even bother. They'll just take it out and put it down there.
Yeah.
So it's also a matter of also making aware.
Yeah.
What are those features? They are not just put there for decoration. They serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Actually, this is what they did. They removed to using another way.
Oh.
So, and the guys know, like when you ask them, they say, yeah, I don't know, where is it? I don't know what is it. And then you ask a little bit more and they say, okay, we use for another thing.
Scrap metal. Yeah, so most people are not aware why we have that. So this actually shows why, right? When the tractor rolls over, and assuming you have a seat belt, so you'll be hanging there, at least you won't be crushed. This is going to protect you, like it forms that pocket there, so it saves you. So
Alick, one beautiful thing you just said is like assuming that you have a seatbelt, and this is actually actual requirement. So in the international standards, especially for the tractors, you are actually required to have a seatbelt on every tractor. So you cannot drive. Okay, no matter how experienced you are, you're not allowed to drive without having actual security, being secured in your seat. So just in case of anything, even if you roll over or tip or whatever, you are secure and safe when the seatbelt is on. If it's not, you're liable to get any injuries. Yeah, never jump, definitely.
Yeah, and then the other thing that you are going to see when you move around the compound, you see when people are driving tractors, there will be people sitting on these wheels, on the what do you call those things, the bumper or whatever the wheels. So if something like that happens, they are not protected, right? There is no seat belt on those on the covers, the wheel covers, so they will be thrown off. So that's something, and we've talked about that with Wilson. We need to stop people from doing that. Yeah, the argument is that there is no transportation to take people to the fields, but the risk is higher, right? If walking versus getting injured, what to me it's an easy choice. So yeah, next slide. So when you are operating tractors, try to avoid steep slopes. Probably that's a little bit tricky when you come to Ibadan because of the undulating nature of our landscape. Avoid ditches and embankments. Also, like driving maybe a little bit slower when you're going through such features. When you are parked, make sure that the vehicle is secure. Avoid driving in crowded areas. Do not allow others to ride. We just went over that. And of course, we spoke about the seat belt. Try to reduce speed when turning, crossing slopes or rough, on the rough, slick or muddy surfaces. So just it's common sense stuff, right? But people don't tend not to do that. Like I see, I remember one time when I just joined Canada, we hired summer students in the summer to help with the plots, and I went out just familiarizing myself with the farm, and I saw one of the students is driving a tractor. It was an open canopy tractor, and then they were on the cell phone, right? And so things like that, like it's common sense. You know that it's risky. It's even worse than talking on the phone when you're driving outside, because like we were saying, it's an open vehicle, so bad things could happen. So those are things that we should at least be telling people when we are onboarding, when they are bringing them on, that avoid using cell phones when you're operating a tractor or any other implement for that matter. Yeah. Yes. Sure. Yeah. Oh God, you're using a cell phone. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I think just as an addition, I think I've also observed that whenever maybe the tractor operator is busy working in the field, or even here, I think I observed yesterday, you have these guys sitting on the mud guards unsecured. So that is quite dangerous. In case of an emergency brake, someone would just fall off like that.
Get thrown off.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know before, and then now it's become clearer to me that someone should not sit beside an operator while working. But imagine you have a student who comes newly, and you are being told to teach him or her how to drive. How do you go about this? And that fellow now has a limited time to stay.
Let John answer that.
Students are not meant to be on the tractor with you when they are teaching them. You need to sit down. I mean, watch you doing what you are doing. Tell them why you are doing it. The time of allowing them to sit on the tractor will come, not when you are walking on the field. Not when you are walking on the field with it. When a student sits beside you, if I'm driving a truck, for example, and I now see a pit in front of me, I now match my brake, what happens to the student? He jumps up because there's nothing he's holding on to. So what we do in my farm unit is that I tell them, you don't sit beside a tractor driver when he's driving. A student is meant to be taught how we are doing it, not on the, sitting down by the side of the tractor does not mean you know everything, no.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, and that's why we should develop things. I mean, it goes back again to having job safety analysis, documentation, and SOPs. So when, like, that's part of the training, right? Like John is saying, you can explain things. In fact, why would I want? Because why would I want to sit on the mudguard when somebody who doesn't know how to drive is operating the tractor, right? That's the risk is even higher. You know, like they could hit the brake quickly, and I don't want anything to happen to me. I like my golf too much, right? So, oh, this is the next slide. Also, some of the potential hazards on machinery and equipment that we should be looking out for: pitch points. So when two rotating objects are moving together, like gears, you know, wrap points, rotating shaft, like the PTO, where like, so that's making sure that you're not wearing loose clothes around PTOs and things like that, or you shouldn't even be near a PTO in any case. Shear points, edges of two objects are moved together close enough to cut a soft material. Crash points, when two objects move towards each other, or when a moving object approaches a stationary object. Stored energy, when you're working with springs, hydraulics. Pull-in points, mechanism designed to take in props or other material, like when you are combining what do you call the reel, yeah. So yeah, so those are potential points of hazard on a machinery that you should be aware of. Next slide, boss. So now moving to environmental hazards. So noise, like we work in a very noisy, like farms tend to be noisy, or rather when you're operating machinery, they tend to be very noisy. So make sure that you're wearing earplugs, or we should make sure that that facility is available to the employees. Dust, of course, when you're harvesting or preparing land, it's going to be dust, so maybe you wear some masks. In this day and age, I think now it's probably helpful that at least for dust anyway, the masks that we're wearing for COVID maybe can serve double purposes. Then sunscreen, which could cause skin cancer. Now, there is a myth, and I know I'm in front of a lot of Black people here. There is a myth that Black people, we don't need sunscreen. Like, that's not entirely true. You can get actually cancer, and in Ibadan, we get exposed to a lot of sunshine. So you should try by all means to use sunscreen. I started when I came, but I've relaxed. But you should, that's something that you should be making sure that you are doing, or buy a cream that's got a little bit of sunscreen in it. Heat stroke. Oh, you are doomed, my friend. Same thing here, and Bordeaux. So we're exposed. Heat stroke. That's real in Ibadan, right? The temperatures, like today, the temperature is going to go up to 39 degrees. So, and we like when we are talking about going to the fields this afternoon, that's something we're grappling with. Like, should we go? It's going to be too hot, but by that time, we already arranged the tours. But in retrospect, that's something we should have taken into consideration. So how do you avoid that? Maybe wearing big don't be bored. What's that? Sombrero, yeah. Get something to cover yourself, or at least as supervisors, you are responsible to ensure that the employees, when they are working in the field, they are covered, right? So animals, we spoke about that, like snakes and squirrels and things like that. Is that the right one, Rick? How did I get there? Okay. So for the environment, for chemical containers, once we use them, don't just throw them around. There's a tendency to do that. I've seen some containers, chemical containers that are thrown around the compound. We can't do that. They should be now. Wilson and John, you can correct me. Is there a collection point for used chemical containers, Peter? Yeah.
For EiB-IITA, there is a disposal committee headed by Uponi.
Yeah.
So every used container or used item that are chemicals that are to be disposed, supposed to contact Joseph Uponi.
Yeah.
Then you provide the budget to charge for disposal.
Yeah.
That is the normal practice for EiB-IITA. That's normal practice for EiB-IITA. But many people don't do that. And then the farm committee have been trying to fight against that for quite some time.
They're charging?
No, the farm committee has been talking about proper disposal of those things for some time.
Yeah.
But I think it should be the duty, maybe it's your duty, now to take it by the horn to say this is responsible. And then maybe people who do not dispose them well, there should be a fine, just like you have a fine for not cleaning the field when you finish.
Yeah.
If that one is imposed, because the cost of disposal is cheap, very small, it's not something that is big.
Yeah.
But if that one is put there, everybody is meant to be aware, I guess they will follow. There's a disposal committee, I think.
So you hear that, Wilson, another source of revenue for us. Eh?
Point of information, sir.
Yes, sir.
It used to be farm responsibility under one-time farm manager, Mr. Bamidele.
Yes.
He's an old man now in Ibadan. The sea circle now became the place where we are now manufacturing Aflasafe. We used to keep chemicals, old chemicals there. Toxic chemicals are disposed at the back of the dog kennel near the gate.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this revenue drive is taking everything out of the hands of the farm.
Alick, the other issue also that is worrisome, if you check around, I'm not so sure here, but here and there we have picked it as we move around the stations in Africa, where you see it's a chemical bottle and someone says, I've cleaned it thoroughly and I'm using it as a drinking water bottle.
Yeah, yes.
That one is a very common feature, and I don't know what you'll do, but it needs your thorough look. That's a very risky. There's the cumulative effect of the chemicals within the body. Naturally, is the person, he or she is just cleaning that bottle into his system. So probably that's another thing that you need to look into very thoroughly.
So what, and I said, make sure that it's triple rinse and do not reuse, but also the other thing is what we used to do in
An observation here, maybe this is interesting to some of you.
Yes.
One day, when I was in Austria working in an institute, we planned an experiment with potatoes, with clonal potatoes. So we had in vitro propagation of potato plantlets, and then these were a second time propagated via cuttings. And in the end, we had to create, 30,000 or so cuttings for the planting in the field. And the technician who cared for it did it very well, and the plants developed very well, perfectly, until one weekend. I came at the end of the weekend on Sunday to see after the plants, and I saw, wow, they looked a little bit grayish and with the shine. That was strange. So on Monday, I told the assistant what happened. He said, oh, this is nothing, this will disappear. It's probably because of the weather that had changed or so. But on the next day, these plants were dying, and we could see how they were dying. So he scratched his head and he said, oh, maybe I confounded these buckets for watering the plants. I used the bucket that is used to apply herbicide.
Right.
And that's the same story. Yeah, and you could see the effect immediately.
Yeah.
This whole work of weeks was gone in a moment of just not caring. And these rest, you know, sometimes in these bottles are of stiff plastic. They are designed to safely contain this sort of hazardous chemicals. But even when you rinse them, if you rinse them more and you rinse them with boiling water and add some detergents or so, there still remain sufficient residues of these chemicals that can really destroy a living organism.
Yeah.
It's really something to be
Aware
very
of.
serious about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So just before John comes in, the one thing to get around that, what we used to do in AFC is that we will slash the containers, after triple rinse, slash them, like cut them up. Yeah, so they can't be reused. John?
So I want to suggest again, like Peter said, that maybe after this meeting, you really need to take a step, because this issue we are discussing now caused a lot of lives in the past.
Yeah.
You know, people using the same container to drink water. And this issue of pony handling it, it's not okay for now.
Yeah.
At all. Because Mr. Wilson can bear witness, we have a lot of bottles we use at BS Block. We are yet to destroy them because we're waiting for Mr. Oponi.
Yeah.
And the old site, which Mr. Adonye is referring to, is there. Nothing is happening there again. So I want you to please take a serious step about this.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yes, I think one common example of phenomenon, especially with the NAS, is the use of knapsack to spray herbicides and insecticide at the same time. As pointed out, we had an encounter. The technician used the knapsack to spray the glyphosate. And when the crop is about mature, you use the same to spray the insecticide. And we find out that it's just killing the plant. So it's something that we also have to take note, at least get a separate knapsack for insecticides and different one for herbicide.
And I think we do that, Wilson, they do that, they separate. So anyway, great discussion. So now going to what you just said, actually is a good segue. So for the sprayer, making sure that you triple rinse with ammonia or bleach. There are some commercial products that you can use actually to clean the tank. And then spray the rinse it on wasteland, away from sensitive ecosystems such as lakes and water. And there is a feature that you can construct, and I'm looking into doing that at Ibadan and the other sites, a biobed, which actually just go to the next slide. So it's a biobed, and essentially what it does is that once you've sprayed your fields, you can, when you triple rinse, you can come and dispose of the product here. And it's a simple construction. It's composed of just plant material, like 50% straw, wood chips, and topsoil, and some peat. So once you construct that, the microbes flourish in the mix, and they can break down the herbicide, the chemicals, so they become inactive. And so that's something I'm looking for us to actually construct at all our sites. At least it gets rid of, or we're not worrying about spraying pesticides near sensitive features, ecosystems like water. Next slide, boss. So actually, these are very common here. Oh yeah, 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine went to play golf at the military barracks, Jonathan Odong. And after they played, they invited him to have a dish with them, and it was a dish of a cobra. This is just 2 weeks ago, so I'll take you there. What's that? It's not a cobra?
This is not a cobra.
Okay, it's in this picture, it's representing a cobra. So I assume it's a cobra.
Actually, Alick, this is a field snake. We actually preserve those. They help in rodent control.
Oh, is that so? Well,
Yeah.
These ones? Oh, okay. Okay, if there's one thing you should know about Africans and snakes, we don't.
Education on recognizing snakes.
Yeah.
Because many snakes are killed for nothing.
Oh,
It's
here.
really a pity.
Yeah,
Not only here, everywhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I think
Unfortunately,
most of the snakes here would be, most of the snakes would be poisonous. A snake is a snake is a snake to me. So I'm not going to take my chances. Yeah. So next slide. So the other environmental thing we have to factor that we have to pay attention to is noise. So the one thing I last time I gave this similar presentation was if for those of you who work at EiB-IITA, when you drive out of the compound here, as soon as you get out of there, you're getting in this actually very loud 90 to 100 decibel noise levels. When you come in, probably we're around 50. So you have to be aware. Again, I mentioned that make sure that your employees are wearing ear protections because it can cause permanent damage to your ears. Next slide. So another way to get around like issues we've been talking about exposure to chemicals, of course, is the use of PPE, personal protective equipment. I think Peter, where is Peter? Is he out? Oh, he stepped out. Yeah. So I took one picture when I came. There was a guy spraying chemicals. He was wearing a mask, but with a respirator, but he didn't have any filters on the side. So it was just a decoration. His head was not covered. He was just wearing a coverall, and I don't think he was wearing gloves, and he was wearing steel-toed boots. So there were so many entry points there, like, of course, the head, the material I was wearing was absorbent, like will absorb the chemical. So this is something that we need to pay attention to as we move ahead. I know it's expensive to use the Tyvek suit because it's disposable, right? And they are not cheap, but the risk again is higher. So make sure that when you the labels make sure that you read the label. It will tell you what you should be wearing in terms of protective gear. So like you can see the chemical resistant coverall. If he's spraying, nothing gets in there. Once it's done, you can take it off, either throw it off. Some people will use it maybe a couple of times. Safe goggles. If there is anything happening, like the spray, the wind, nothing will go into his eyes. The respirator, of course, and this we have to actually we're gonna have to do this where everybody's fitted for the respirator, because I can't borrow your mask and use it, which means people like Amea will have to lose their beard, like, because you can't keep a beard when you're wearing a mask, things like that. Chemical resistant boots. So yeah, we need to pay attention to that. And you are going to explain how to take off gloves.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on this, that the way you have to put your protective suit on and the way you have to take it off, there should be follow a certain procedure so that while you're taking off your clothes, you actually have to either rinse or wash. And if you don't, you want to take them off automatically before rinsing or washing. That means you have to do it in a specific manner so that you don't contaminate your skin.
Yeah. So normally, for the gloves, you go inside and then roll them out, so yeah.
Okay, Alick, the other thing that we should also take note, which normally happens whether by default or by design, is people tend to improvise too much. You see the guy is given everything, every gear, it's in his locker room or whatever.
Yeah.
But you see him in the field, probably he's wearing his own label cap.
Yeah.
He's wearing probably his own label sunglasses, which don't serve the purpose at that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's another issue. It's whether it's by design or by default, it happens.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
these things should be looked into as well.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. And it cuts both ways. I think management, assuming I'm management anyway, we have the responsibility to ensure that we provide the gear, and once we do that, now it's the employee has to be using that. And if we find that they are spraying and they are not using the suits, there should be some consequence. Like either, I mean, consequence maybe is not the right word, but we should maybe re-educate them because it's for their own good. Somebody.
So talking about educating our people have this idea of after spraying chemical, they go home and drink some palm oil, the red oil, or drink milk that will serve as a buffer for whatever things that have entered their body. How true is that? And like when they are going for spraying, they ask for milk in my unit. So oftentimes we have to just give them milk to make them feel safe to go and do the work. Should we really encourage that, or they should just do the right thing? I mean, right protective wears.
Yeah, go ahead, boss.
The use of milk is actually a universal buffer. Okay, so basically, if you're drinking anything that is toxic, normally the first thing that they tell you that you should ingest is actually milk. However, don't do that without adult supervision, or actually, as they say on TV, but you have to consult with the MSDS file, okay, the material safety data sheet for every chemical. And that's also found on the labels, because it happened to me once. I was disposing of a chemical and I was exposed to fumes. So I started getting reactions. So what should I do? I automatically went to the laptop, printed the MSDS file, and went to the emergency room, because the doctors there also had to know what the antidote should be. So no matter what kind of exposure you have, okay, you can try different remedies. However, they will not work. You need to check the MSDS file for the proper procedure for intoxication.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I'll probably zip through the next one just in the interest of time. Next slide. So, okay, just before that. Yes, sir. Yeah, so this just reiterates what we've talked about, and the numbers there are a little bit scary. These, of course, will be American, but I would assume here maybe, well, we don't use that many chemicals, but the ratio might even be higher. Next slide. So for chemical safety, we need to provide training, regular training. We, in terms of storage and transportation, transportation of dangerous goods training. Personal hygiene is important. Make sure that you shower, or we should be providing that facility. I don't think we have that, do we? We do? Oh, okay. Yeah, shower, wash clothes. When you are washing clothes, we should actually buy washing machines for all the sites to ensure that people are not taking their clothes from work to taking them home, because you can't mix your clothes with personal family clothes. And if you get a spill or anything like that, make sure you wash off immediately. And we'll be working with these guys to ensure that we have the stations established everywhere. Next slide. We talked about that. So next slide. PPE for workshops. This is, did I say Googles? Goggles? Yeah. Cover, yeah. So next slide. Amir just talked about the MSDS sheet. It's important that you familiarize yourself with this information when you're using a chemical, as it lists all the information as it pertains to how you should go about what you should be doing in case of you come in contact with the chemical. Next slide.
And those should be ready, by the way, within the farm management, okay, or within the documents that you have at the operation level. So these things should be readily available just in case of any accident so that you can automatically start and take action.
Yeah, in fact, we should be storing a file everywhere so that in case there is a fire, the fire marshal can actually will know what's in there and they can read the MSDS sheet and know what to do. Next slide. So these are just the different sections of the MSDS sheet. Next slide. I spoke about the JSA. We should have these established for all equipment. And essentially, this is just a document that, go to the next slide, that you use to identify risks. So in this case, like you have just the sequence of the steps that you do when you're operating a piece of equipment. And then you can identify potential hazards like pinch points, climbing in and out, and what do you do? What kind of recommended procedures you should be carrying out? Next slide. So yeah, COVID is real in this day and age. Make sure that we are following the recommended steps when we are in the field. Field employees shouldn't be too close together. Make sure that there is the recommended space of 2 meters between employees. Next slide. So signage, Wilson spoke about that this morning. Make sure that we have proper signage to help people identify hazards. Next slide. So there is some cost to injuries that, and that's one of the reasons that we should also be, I mean, of course, somebody's life is more important than saving money. But there are some costs like direct costs, medical costs to look after an employee, workers' compensation, then some indirect costs like if you have a specialized employee that's out of commission for a while, like somebody who is good at crossing, that's going to impact the program, and then retraining and replacing that employee is going to cost small. Also just accommodating the injured employee, like we may have to build ramps or things like that. And cost of replacing damaged material as a result of improper operation. Next slide. So Amir spoke about safety. Safety is not just physical, it's mental, and you have to look after yourself. When you lose your arm, yeah, EiB-IITA will say we're sorry and all that stuff, but in the end, it's you who's gonna lose the arm. It's you who's not going to play golf, right? So time off, like make sure that you're taking time off to spend with your family. What matters the most is your family, of course. And as we know, we are in a we're in a profession where long hours are warranted from time to time. So make sure after the busy season, when things cool down, maybe take some time off. Organizational change, which we're going through right now. So some people are worried, am I going to have a job under the 1CG? Seek some advice maybe from HR. And then violence, we tend to think of violence as physical, somebody hitting you, but it's also just verbal, you know, like if I'm abusing Vinicius verbally or sending him emails that are rude, it's going to impact that person even when they are working. So this is one thing I think when we are writing, I've done it before where I write an email, respond without, because I'm hot, right? And I write it and I send it, but it's not advisable. What you should do is, and this is what my boss told me, right? Compose your email if you are upset. Let it sit for maybe the night, come back to the following day. You look at things with a different perspective and you end up not sending it, because you have to be aware that when you send an email that's offensive, it's going to impact the other person on the other side. So just something to, and even the way you construct the emails, make sure that it's polite, right? Oga, friend, and emails that's, once it's written, it's out there, right? It's yeah, exactly. So yeah, you've seen people sending somebody so and so would like to recall yeah, what recording, what? I've already seen the content. So yeah, next slide. So make sure that we establish HSE committees at every station, and it should be employee driven really, because with the support of management, establish TORs and meet frequently, and also just make sure that you're reporting instances. And this shouldn't be punitive, right? It should be an opportunity to learn, like what can we do better next time, and investigate instances as they happen. So, and then also organize just regular health and safety audits, maybe once or twice a year, bringing people to do that. We've been trying to do that with our internal committee, but it hasn't happened. So I've started looking outside for somebody from outside to come and do the audit for our farms at least. Next slide. Okay, so we are supposed to discuss, I'm at 10, can I steal 5 minutes? Oh, okay, okay, this one, so we end here. Okay, with that, thank you so much, namaste. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Alick. We have a break, right? You have a question, you have something, Gabriel?
Not really a question though. I just wanted to add something to what Mr. Alick said. When it comes to hierarchy of controls, when it comes to safety, the main thing that goes to our head is PPE. And when it comes to hierarchy of control, it shouldn't be PPE. PPE is the least. We should look for how to eliminate the problem that's causing the hazard, then how to substitute that, or probably find engineering controls, then administrative control before PPE. But most of us, when you're talking about safety, the next that comes to our mind is PPE. Your safety boot, that's not the first approach. So just to add to what Mr. Alick has said, thank you.